Hi guys, I thought I'd just do a quick video. I've just done this on my Outcast and it's changed the performance of the truck massively. Basically, the diff oil in the centre diff on the Kraton v2.5 4S and the matching Outcast. I was finding on the Outcast, every time the front wheels got up in the air, the car was just transferring every little bit of power to the front wheels. It's not very good. When you're wheeling and stuff and it's trying to send all that power to the front, you can't hold wheelies very well. As I say, I've already done this on the Outcast and it's made such a huge difference. I've only changed it to 1 million. I've seen a couple of people on the forums and stuff changing it to 20 million. 1 million's fine. The difference in the Outcast is absolutely huge. So this is my son's Kraton. It's only about 2 weeks old. I know it doesn't look it, but he's been using it nearly every day. We're going to get this diff out, see how much fluid is actually in there, because the Outcast, it was probably 60% full. I took all of the diff oil out the Outcast and replaced it all with 1 million. The Kraton doesn't suffer quite so badly with it. So I think what I'm going to do in here is, if I open this up and it's about as full as what the Outcast was, like 60-70%, I'm just going to top it up with the 1 million, and I'm hoping somewhere in the middle then it's going to end up about 600,000-700,000, and that will help this. As I say, it doesn't do it quite so much with this, but you do still witness it, you do still see it. So tools you're going to need, nice and simple, pair of pliers. You're going to need a 2 and a 2.5mm Allen key, some thread lock, it's just to lock the diff back up. Obviously 1 million weight oil, pure silicone diff oil, and a rag. When you take all this out, it's quite cool, it's all modular. As you pull all of this out, how it all slots back in, but you need to make sure that those slots are clean. So otherwise this won't pop back in, or it won't pop back in properly, and you'll have trouble lining your screws back up. So let's get into it. First thing we want to do, centre brace. We want to just pop this one screw here out of the centre brace. Put that to one side. We can slide this little thing out of there. Doesn't need to come all the way out, that's fine. And that should just pop out, there we go. Do some of this. There we go, and just keep that out of the way. There's no need to remove both, it's absolutely fine there. Okay, now we've got to tackle this centre drive shaft. It's just a sprung loaded drive shaft. It's what we need the pliers for. So I found on the Outcast the easiest way was to pull it out. Try and stay away from these little splines here. You don't want to damage those because of that moving in and out. So we'll slide this back, just get it enough so it comes off the front diff little shaft there. Same on the back. We can get to it. No. Okay, this is actually a lot tighter than the Outcast one was. There we go, so we'll slide that out there, and the front one's popped back in, so we'll try and get the front out. Just be careful not to damage it. Okay, takes a bit of wiggling, but we get it out. Okay, when you've got that out, just check that spring's all working nicely in there. As I say, it's a nearly new truck, so all the splines and everything are nice in there. And give that a little bit of a wipe. Make sure that bearing's running nice and free. That's lovely. I'll say it's as it should be, because it is brand new. Careful not to lose that little rubber O-ring off there. Give the splines a bit of a clean. Lovely. Also, because we're taking the motor out, it gives us a good chance to be able to have a look down in there and give the bottom of the chassis a bit of a clean. So centre drive shaft, bearings running nicely, moving nicely on that spring. Lovely. Put that to one side. Okay. Get that bit of a wipe in there once we reassemble it. Okay, next thing we're going to do, you can leave all these wires plugged in. I like to just remove them. So we'll take the motor fan off there. It's got a bit dirty in there, I'm not expecting that to last very long. Unplug all the wires from the motor, being very careful with these. We've got 1, 2 and 3. You can take note of which way they've come off. They are labelled A, B and C, you just have to trace them back. It's quite easy. Okay, next thing we're going to do, turn the truck over. Keeping that out of the way. Okay, then we've got 3 screws here. 1, 2, 3. I probably wouldn't advise going to 20 million weight. I mean, that stuff, it is solid. It really is solid. But, okay, so we've undone those 3 screws. As I say, the 2 were in there, the 1 was in the front. That'll allow us to just pull this little tab out. It should just slide out, he says. Might need a screwdriver or get an Allen key down in there to just shift it. There we go, she's coming. It shouldn't be too tight in there. I'm not sure why this is so tight, to be fair. There we go. Just slide him out of the way. Ow, there we go. Okay, there's that piece. Let's say, oh, there we go. That's why that's so tight. It's full of absolute, it's full of gunk. So once we've got this out, we can give all that a really good clean in there. So again, slotted design, just slides straight in. Okay, next up, got these little pull tabs on here. From experience, yeah, they're very tight. I might stand up for this one. Okay, so pulling up and pulling forwards. This does take a little bit of force, but he will come. Give it a little wiggle. There we go. Okay. So, yeah, you can see why that was a bit stuck in there then as well. Let's stay to that. Okay, somehow these get absolutely, these little tabs, they slide in here. They get absolutely full of rocks, dirt, all sorts. As I say, this isn't an old truck either, so when we reassemble that, we'll give all that a really good clean. And let's put the truck to one side for a minute and take a look at this diff and the motor. Okay, so we've got our motor there, all looks good. As I say, needs a bit of a clean. You can access the bearing for the diff there, or you can wait till you take it out. So next up, we've got these 5. Next up, you've got the 5 screws there, just to take this piece of plastic off. As I say, I'm not using a drill for this. These aren't very tight at all. I noticed that in the Outcast as well. Really not very tight. You may find that some of these screws are caped in dirt or mud. So you may need to get a very, very small little flat-headed screwdriver down in there and give the heads a bit of a clean. Okay, last bit. And there we go. Right, so should be able to prise that off there. Oh wow, okay. You can see from there a lot of rubbish has got down in there. So this bearing, which should come out with the diff, is actually stuck down in there. Bearing doesn't feel the nicest either, so I'm going to replace that. Let's get that bearing out of there. He should just need a little push, because I say he should come out. He should come out with the diff. We did on the Outcast anyway. There we go. So again, these screws are Loctited in. So we'll put some on those, but obviously that needs a really good clean before we reassemble that. Put that to one side. Check this bearing. As I say, this bearing sits on here. Yeah. New bearing needed for that. We'll give him a clean, soak him in WD and see if we can get him fixed back up, but not feeling the best. Okay, we'll put him to one side. And there is your centre diff. Your pinion there, spur there. Just pop that out like that. You can see there's your other bearing, and say that came out with the diff on the outcast as well. Okay. So pinion looks very, very good. You can pop that back in there as well to check your mesh. You can do a little bit of adjusting if needed. The outcast was fine, and this looks absolutely fine as well. So, we'll give that a bit of a clean. Let's get this diff cleaned up and topped up, and then we'll go about doing a bit of maintenance on all of it. So, let's give it a bit of a wipe. Check your spur. Spur looks good, dirty but good. Okay. All that alright. Now it's this side you want to remove. Again, these get absolutely full of rubbish. I think some of it is Loctite actually. The outcast was definitely full of Loctite. There we go. Battery's charged. Okay, so remove any rubbish that's in there because you do not want to strip these screws. Okay, make sure these are nice and clean. As I say, the outcast had some pretty strange stuff down in those. You can actually see on those heads where they've been rubbing into that cover as well, which isn't good. Obviously, there's not really much you can do about that. They will just finally wear it away so that they don't touch it anymore, but let's get this diff open. Right, so screws all nice and clean. We've got most of the stuff out of there. Let's remove these 4 screws, making sure we're all the way down in that hole, making sure they're nice and clean, because we don't want to strip the heads on these. Now these will be quite tight, because they've, the outcast especially, had a lot of Loctite in there. Just loosen them all off one by one. Now we'll go through it when we put it back together as well, but we need to make sure we tighten these in a cross pattern because there's a little gasket in here. Okay, last one. Before we take this last screw out, just make sure we put that there, and then just mind any of the dust and dirt off the table. So you don't want to be getting anything in these diffs. They're sealed diffs. So you can see the blue gasket around here. You can give it a very short wheel. Oh, this one's not very tight at all. Okay, we just want to be careful we do not break this gasket. So and oh wow, okay, let's move some of that off there. Yeah, you can see that's like half full. Probably less. Yeah, not the best at all. So now we've got these apart. Obviously on the outcast, I removed all of this and replaced it with the 1 million. I don't think the kraton needs such a heavy weight in the back. I think the mixture of the 500,000 that's in there, topping it up with this 1 million, We're going to be around, well, looking at that, we're going to be around 700,000, 800,000, which I think is perfectly fine. If I had 500 or 700, I'd probably top that up in there just to keep it a little bit lower. But we're only going to help things. As I say, if you want to go full 1 million in there, go for it. This stuff is extremely hard to get out of the bottle. So I'm going to place that there. Nice big squeeze, fill the diff up. Okay, obviously we can't fill this all the way to the top, because this is going to take up a lot of the area in there, but we can certainly top it up quite nicely. There's some of those gears, obviously once it gets warm, this will all move around. But, okay, so we've topped that up nicely now. You can see, I'm going to work around. As this all heats up, it's going to mix and stuff. It'll all mix in. It's more getting some oil in there. That was extremely low. The Outcast was actually had a lot more in there than that. Okay. So reassembly. I'm going to place these. You've got these two little dowels running down inside there. You've got two dowels sticking up, so we'll get those lined up. There we go. And very careful then. Bring him back down till he's home. Just like that. And you say we shouldn't need to clean that gasket or anything, because it should be all sealed. So as long as we didn't disturb it too much. Okay. So reinsert those 4 screws. Add in a little bit of Loctite to each. We want to tighten these in a cross pattern to make sure we get a good seal on that gasket. Okay. Right, last one. Okay, so I'm going to pinch this one down, cross, pinch, cross, pinch, and the last one. Okay, and then we can go back. 1, 2, 3. And 4. Okay, you notice I didn't do those up crazy tight, just for the pure fact of I've stripped quite a few screws in these diffs before, not in these diffs specifically, but in other RCs, and it's not worth it. So we can check the 4 screws on the spur. Just to make sure they're pinched up. And again, they should be Loctited in. Yeah. Yeah, they're nice and tight. Okay, so there we have our diff. can work that around in there if you want. Obviously it's going to get worked around as soon as you fire the truck, but you can feel the difference straight away. Okay, so on to reassembly then. Reassembly and cleaning. So we've got to make sure where our bearings sit are nice and clean, and they're going to sit nice and flush. I'm going to reapply the bearings to this actually, and not put them in the casing. It just seems easier to get it in. So that's our diff. Give these bearings a bit of a wipe. I'm going to go and grab another bearing out of the bag. As I say, this is a 3-week-old truck. It doesn't seem very protected in this area. It hasn't been driven underwater, it's been driven through puddles. So that bearing's feeling okay. Put it back on there, and that should just slide nicely on there. You shouldn't need to tap that on there. Okay. This is the, there we go. That's the new bearing out of the bag over there. Okay, so running nicely. Put that to one side. Right, I'm going to pause the video for 1 sec, go and give this a clean, and clean all the inside of the kraton out where this all slots in. And all this motor cover, diff cover, a good clean inside there. You can see where those screws for the diff have been rubbing across here. They say the outcast was the same. I'm not really sure what else we can do about that. Nice little trick to clean the tabs at which the motor sits. If you get a small screwdriver, so if we get a small screwdriver and some cloth and work down in there, these do need to be really nice and clean, otherwise you're going to have a nightmare putting that motor back in and getting everything lined up. And then the same on these tabs here. Give those a nice rub. Get them nice and clean. You always end up with burrs on here, which isn't the best. You could take a file and just flatten those burrs off. It's where when it's screwed in, it's pulling that plastic down. But I'm going to say, you rarely ever get the chance to get so close to all this without stripping it. So while you're doing the diff oil, it's a good idea to just give the places that you can't access usually a bit of a wipe and a bit of a clean. I'm going to make sure where this bearing sits in here is nice and clean as well. Clean around the pinion. Right, so we've got the parts all clean. It's time to start reassembling. First of all, rewind the truck out of the way. Let's reassemble the diff onto the motor. So we've got our bearings there. We can pop that bearing back in. Let's say that should go in there lovely, just like that. Making sure we got our pinion and our spur lined up. You can check your mesh in there. Nice little click there. I do prefer them ever so slightly tighter. I haven't adjusted this one, but that looks pretty good to me. We leave that as is. You can check your motor mounts there. I've just checked them off camera. They're pretty solid. They seem pretty good. So with that in there, got a bearing on the top. Replace the cover. I'm going to say make sure that's nice and clean in there. You should slide on a lot nicer than what it came off. There we go. So let me pop that back off a sec. I'm going to put 5 very little small tabs of Loctite on there. Okay, so we don't want to go too tight with these screws, just a nice little nip. Lock that last slot down, because they're only going into plastic. It's very, very easy to strip the threads. So we've got the Loctite on there as well. I'm not saying they're loose, they're probably a little bit tighter than when it first came off, but not tight by any means. Okay, and there you have it. It's your motor and the diff all reassembled. This connection's a bit of a wipe. Okay, let's grab the truck back and see how easy it slides back in. Right. Okay. So we got our motor there. Just try and hold your wires out of the way. Get it in so it's running somewhere near flat. I'm going to get it lined up. So we've got the spline there. You may, if you have moved your truck, you may have to, as you turn the wheels, get it lined back up with that little spline that's coming out of the back of the diff. Okay, so what I tend to do is, as I'm pushing, I'll just roll the truck back, making sure it looks lined up, which that isn't. Making sure it looks lined up as I'm pushing the truck back. There we go, that's got it. Okay, so final click and we're in. All right, you can see it's meshing nicely. And then on to reassembly. So these, I always forget to clean these little tabs in here. Give these a bit of a wipe, because these are quite a crucial part in locking that motor in place. Okay, so I've got that. It goes in around that way. It's a good way of knowing if this is slid all the way back as well, because this should slide in quite nicely here, just like that. Okay, so that's locked our motor in place. Flip the truck back over. I'm going to reinsert those 3 screws there. So we've got the 2 shorter ones on the back. And the longer one in the middle. Whiz those back in. Again, not too tight with these, because they are just screwing directly into the plastic. I'm surprised for what they're actually screwing into. There's not a little nut or something to screw on into there. The only one with the nut is this centre one, which screws into that locking piece by the battery that we just put back in. So we can give that one a little bit more force, we can lock him in nicely, something like that. And then these 2, we are literally just going to nip them up. 1, 2. Okay, that's all locked in. Next bit. This can be a bit of a pain. Getting this back in here. Okay, so we've got the spring. We're going to slide him over that spline first. There we go. And as we pull this back, we've got to make sure that this bearing goes back into this little cavity here, just to keep it running through on there. So you'll probably have to slide him back a little bit. And as we slide this back, we're going to pull that bearing back forward and get him lined up. Okay, it can be a little bit tricky. Use this for a little bit of leverage there. So that looks about right, so we're going to slide the bearing up. Okay, so the bearing's running in there. Give the car a little bit of a wiggle, and there we go, it's snapped back in. Okay, that's running in there now. Last couple of bits, tuck that back under there, get that lined up, and try to slide this pin back in here. Can be a bit stubborn, this pin. There we go. Reinsert that locking screw into there. Like so. Lock him in. Nice and solid. Make sure that's done up. And last few little bits. Just going to wire the motor back up. So fan plugs in with the tabs facing outside of the actual plug. Okay, so that slots in there. Okay, so you've got A there. You follow A from this side. I know it's the one with this attached. Just be very, very careful of that little wire. So, one. We got B there, which is this wire here. B. And finally, C. And that's it, guys. That is how to change your centre diff fluid on your Arrma Outcast or Kraton v2.5. I'm hoping this does a lot. I really am. As I say, what this did on the Outcast was unbelievable. It's got to be one of the best mods you can make. The next thing I'm going to be looking at on these trucks is the servo. I'm going to be buying the Kimbro servo saver and doing that. I'll probably practice it out on one of the trucks first, and then if it works as well as what I'm hoping it's going to work, I'll do a video on a how-to to do that as well. But yeah, that was a nice little video, nice and easy, changing that diff fluid, giving everything in there a bit of a clean. I was amazed how dirty that was in there actually, it took me by surprise. But yeah, if you liked the video, guys, if you found it informative, please drop me a like and a subscribe. And yeah, I'll be trying to do a lot more of these how-to videos. It took a while to get everything set up and everything, but I think it went okay. So thanks very much for watching. I hope I helped, and I'll see you soon.